Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Joining us on the podcast today is Sarah Daniele. Sarah is the CEO and the co-founder of Mydoma Studio. She is an industry-leading design expert with 10 years of residential design experience. Now, let me tell you just a little bit about Mydoma Studio, and Sarah's certainly going to tell us more as we talk with her. But Mydoma Studio provides interior design professionals with the tools to enhance their value, create a repeatable process, and collaborate with their clients in an ever-changing industry. Sarah has worked hard on Mydoma Studio, and she really understands how important it is to have systems and processes to effectively manage and grow your interior design business. We talk about this today with regard to scalability and even with hiring. I love in our conversation that Sarah is going to share some of the struggles of starting a business as a side hustle that then turns into your main business. I think it is super fun that she said that they were building and she hadn't even told her team yet. And so you're going to hear that story. Just a fun conversation, a very real conversation. And so I just invite you to listen in, and later, if you want to check it out, go to mydomastudio.com. Thanks. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Sarah, welcome to Profit is a Choice.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad the same way I kind of turned the tables on Luann, I'm able to turn them on you a little bit. You've hosted me a couple of times in your private Facebook group for Mydoma to be able to share profitability and some pricing information with the designers that you serve. And so now I'm going to get to flip the script a little bit and have you on the other side. We'll have you in the hot seat today instead of me.
Ooh, the hot seat. I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about.
Good. Well, what I'd love to do is just have you share a little bit about where your business is today. And then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions because I want to go back and talk about kind of the prior years that led you to do what you're doing today. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about Mydoma Studio.
Great. So Mydoma Studio is specifically project and client management software built for interior designers and by interior designers, because I myself used to be a full-time interior designer. And we've been around a couple of years now, basically since about 2014, 2015. And in that time, we've grown quite substantially. We now have designers all over the world using our software. We are in just over 50 countries as of pretty much last week.
Wow. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about your beginnings as an interior designer, because I know that it was your past that brought you to where you are now, and it's actually leading you forward into the future with where you want to go. So how did you start as an interior designer?
Sure. So I actually, like many interior designers, went to school for it. I got my bachelor's and never really intended to actually run my own business. Thinking back, I didn't really have that entrepreneurial spirit. At least I didn't think I did. And I had intended to really just work for somebody else and build a career in design. So I did that after school. I worked for a couple of different companies, and some small, some large, and eventually actually got laid off from a smaller company due to lack of work. And that really gave me the push to say, maybe I can do this on my own. I still don't even know where that came from, to be honest, because I really wasn't that entrepreneurial person. And decided that, why not just give it a go? What do I have to lose? I'm being laid off as it is. I don't have a job. So why don't I simply start my own business? And that's what I did. Yeah.
And so when you started your own business, I love that it's not that, I do think that some people come into this immediately with, I want to be my own boss. And then I think some people just kind of fall into it and they're like, oh, well, that kind of worked. Or, this door is shut, but there's nothing that says I can't do this on my own. So I think there are people that come at owning their own business in more than one way, for sure. When you started it, did you start it thinking processes, procedures? Did you start it thinking just help me get clients? Did you think, oh my goodness, now what is my profitability structure going to look like? Which I'm guessing you didn't. Most people don't. But yeah, who knows? Maybe you did. Maybe you're the exception. But what was your mindset, if you can remember that time for starting?
I absolutely can remember that time. So because I was coming from being laid off, I had seen what was working and what wasn't working, at least, as a junior, what I thought was working.
Let me ask this real quick. Was it residential design, commercial, or both?
Oh, yes, residential.
Okay.
It was
okay.
all residential, mostly kitchens, bathrooms, and pretty major renovations, additions.
Okay.
Not much decorating. It was mostly more like more construction side.
Okay.
So I came at it from seeing what didn't work in the business I was at and thought there's got to be a way to make this easier. And to be completely frank, I was doing a lot of the same design. And at that time, white shaker kitchens with white subway tile and probably a hardwood floor or tile. Like I could basically design it in my sleep of what most clients were asking for at the time. And I thought there's got to be a better way to speed up the process, to make it more automated, and then spend the time on customization when it was needed. So it was this idea I was percolating, which was kind of a big idea at the time, but I don't think I really knew how big.
So did you have that idea before you actually started your own, or do you think that idea started developing when you were working for the other firm and just kind of noticed the repetition of what you were doing?
It actually started for the other firm when I was working at the other firm, for sure, because we had been having these lunches and talking about, how can we make more money while we're sleeping, basically? Like, how can, there was those conversations that were starting. So definitely the seeds were planted there. And we'd done some early research into some ideas. So when I got laid off, I actually went to my boss at the time, who's still a good friend of mine. And I said to her, I think I'm running with this on my own. I'm going to see if there's something I can do with this idea of basically packaging design services and selling them online. Like, there's got to be something here. And she was absolutely great with it, which was good.
Right. And the nice thing is, as a smaller startup, you could be a little more nimble. And when you're with a larger company, your hands are a little more tied based on process, procedure, the way we've always done it, what's expected, or even just if you will, the machine that's already in place.
That's right.
Coming in by yourself, you can be a little more like, starting in your garage kind of thing and shifting and moving as you need to.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility when you are as a solopreneur or a small team. That's something to, really celebrate in some ways. So basically I went out on my own and came up with this idea. And very early on, I reached out to my husband, Thomas, who now works with me full time. And I, started talking to him about this idea because I didn't know how to build a website and, laid out what I was looking to do. I wanted to make a way for clients to be able to buy designs online, work with me, make their decisions, and kind of do all of that for the people who are a bit more self-serve, I guess. I wanted to cater to that market and then open up my time for the more custom projects, for the ones that really, truly, to argue here to say, like, needed design. They needed a designer to do it.
Or they just wanted a designer to do it.
Yeah. And not the people who really were going to pick the same things, So we did.
Or with the smaller budgets, right? That wanted to kind of even nitpick the whole process and the budget. You just wanted a fast way to allow them to get what they wanted within the time frame and the budget they had, and then to go deeper with those fewer clients to really do full reconstructions and out of the box thinking. Is that what you're?
Exactly. Okay. Yes, ma'am. You're so good at deciphering what I'm trying to say. That's exactly what we decided to do. So we worked together on that in the early days. He actually helped me build a very basic version of it. It was a lot of fun to do.
Now, is his background in building websites and doing all of this? Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that worked out really well.
That was a bonus marriage.
Which at the time we weren't actually married. We were, that summer I got laid off. we were getting married in October.
Okay.
So I love telling the story when I said, let's start a business. And I didn't make any money anymore, by the way.
That's right. And I'm so happy that we're married now.
No, sure. We weren't married yet. We were
about to get married on your dollar with my starting a business.
Yeah, basically. So I don't have a job and we're also having a wedding. So, and I'm going to start a business. Doesn't that sound great?
Yeah. Why don't we take 3 of life's stressors and put them all into a very condensed time frame?
Yeah, we had a very short honeymoon period right after the wedding.
I'm sure.
So back to your original question. Yeah, so we work on building this piece together, and really, I'll openly say we weren't thinking about profitability at the time. That wasn't a driving factor in this. It was really to prove a concept, prove an idea, and say, do people want to buy designs online? Do they want to work online with designers? Can I build a baseline of clients can I build this business model? Will this work? And
I'm sure, and from what you're saying too, efficiency was certainly not only can I do this, but can I do it efficiently, like you said, so that I can almost make money or get answers while I sleep.
Exactly.
Okay.
So processes were a huge driving factor in the beginning.
Sure.
Because we knew it couldn't work unless it was kind of like a machine. It had to work where you did one thing, and then when that thing was approved or completed, it moved to the next thing. It had to operate like that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be efficient, because for our business idea to work, because it was a low cost product, you had to have a large volume of people for it to work. So processes were very important in the very, very beginning stages.
So when you started looking at it, when did you start thinking, okay, this has, as we would say, this has legs, it can carry on? And when did you start looking at it in general and going, maybe I should open this up past just my own personal use and think about how to truly not just make it and here's when I'm going to say this. It's not that I don't love that let me back that up. I'm okay that you didn't start off thinking, how can I be profitable? I love that you started off thinking, how can I serve? Because I do think that profitability is a natural outcome and outflow of us serving our ideal clients. And so if you would come into it with a get rich quick scheme, I think I would be a lot more worried that you cared about profits above people. But the fact that you are building a company, just the same way that we are trying to build a company as interior designers and drapery workrooms and other creatives, that when we are serving and we're serving well and we're serving the right people with the right value, the money comes. So tell me when you looked at it though and thought, okay, this is really great. This goes past what my company, I can open this up to others. When do you think that happened?
Also, I very much agree with you too on the idea of not just building for profitability, like the get rich quick scheme. I just want to say I really, really agree with you that I think the best businesses are built when you're solving a problem, when you're serving the people. Just such a better way to build a business. Now, when did I know? So let's rewind many years ago now, because when I was in business for myself, that was in 2011. And it wasn't until probably 2014, very beginning of 2014, that I realized there was something else there. So just to put that in perspective, like I was doing a ton of design work, a lot of custom projects. I was building this product online. I had no intentions in the early days to really open this up. It was meant for me to grow my business and to build something for myself. But the more I got involved with other interior designers, and I was doing a lot of work online with the Google Plus community at the time, which seems so ancient and so long ago now. But we were a really close group of designers working together and helping one another. And other designers started to ask me about, what is this thing you're building? And more conversations kept happening where I was like, oh, I'm not the only one that's interested in this idea of making reoccurring revenue and streamlining my design process and not wasting all this time on administrative tasks that just are boring, to be frank. Right. They're boring and they're not what I went into business to do. So yeah, I would say long answer there, but probably about early 2014. Okay. It was right in there that we decided that this thing's got some legs, and really, threw the idea at the wall. I just said, I'm building a software. And remember that day? Like, it was just so nonchalant. Like,
Sure.
I built this software, right? Coming from the person who didn't want to go into business for herself. And yeah, I think that was a very, very important date in the whole history of building this piece, like just taking that dive into it.
I love that. I've shared before, I started my business because my neighbors rang the doorbell and had a bolt of fabric and said, will you make window coverings, window treatments for us like you've created in your own home? And I was like, sure. So I started into business in January of 2000 because the doorbell rang. I mean,
I love that.
I had been praying for it. I'd been hoping for it. I'd been thinking about it, but I never really had a plan. I just was still kind of thinking about chewing on it, if you will, until the doorbell rang. And then I was like, okay, so I have a decision. I can say yes or I can say no. And almost every time my business has changed and shifted and morphed, it's been an opportunity that has come up that I've had a chance to go, I can say yes or I can say no. And almost every time, Sarah, the no means I'm going to fall flat on my face. And the yes means I'm going to soar. It's not usually like one of these where you could go either way. It's like you have an opportunity and you're going to fail or you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
Every time.
I kind of feel the same way. Like, it really felt that way. I was like, what do I have to lose at this point? Right? Like, why would I not try this? Like, I think as an entrepreneur, you have to keep your eyes open, right, to what's going on around you. And I think there's a lot of people out there might miss opportunities out of fear or just not being aware, right? And sometimes there's obviously someone knocking on your door. And then there's other times where it's just murmurings of, for us, like just other designers asking me, right? And nobody said, you should build this, right? Like, it didn't happen that obviously, right? It just happened naturally over time where I was like, I think we need to do this thing. Like, this feels like the right next move. So.
Okay. But the interesting thing to me is when you say, hey, I'm building software, this isn't Sarah alone, because Sarah's not the software builder. So you're pulling other people into this great big decision that you're like throwing against the wall now.
Yeah, basically.
Right? Yeah. I mean, pretty much you're like affecting the lives of the people around you.
Yeah.
So was your husband at the time then, when you said to him, oh, by the way, I've kind of put it out in the world that we're going to be creating software. Are you on board with that, honey? How did he react to that?
I love that because I've told this story so many times, but he was literally on the elliptical and said to him, do you want to build this business with me? Like, you haven't been helping me for the last, what is it at that point? 2 years, right? Like, he's already been helping and build this thing. I said, like, let's do this full time. Like, and he's like, yeah, okay. Let's do it. What do you mean? Like, you just want to do it? Like, you're okay with that? Like, you do realize, like, the last 2 years, you've been helping me and working full-time and part-time on the weekends and the evenings with me. And now I'm going to ask you to do it all over again. But like, we have to rebuild everything from scratch. Like, what you built for me isn't good enough for everybody else. And it might not be the right thing. Like, we are literally starting at the beginning again.
Right. You've got to create a platform that can handle multiple users, multiple ways, and be built upon. The framework is a different framework. So was he like, oh yeah, and I'll just take my side hustle, make it my job? I mean, I can't imagine. You don't get paid like that when you first start at all. You just don't. That's not the way it happens. You're starting usually your side hustle, whatever it is. Or did he continue on for just a little bit with his full-time gig and then try to build on the side?
So he worked full-time for about 6 months. And so we worked weekends and evenings, like nonstop.
So 2 full-time jobs.
Basically. There was no stopping. And then it got to the point where it was just too much. It really was. So we went to, at the time, I was doing a lot of contract work for a pretty big company in the city. So I went to them and I said, how about you give me 20 hours and I'll cut my rate, but I need 20 hours every single week. None of this up and down. Like, I'm building this thing. Here's what it looks like. Maybe you guys could use it. And they said, sure. So then he went to his employer and did the same thing. And
okay.
Said, building this startup. Basically for him though, he said, can I just work 4 days a week or 3? I can't remember now.
See, that's awesome. So you found a way to still have money coming in to support your family, to do what you need to do while you built this dream on the side.
Exactly. So we did that for another 6 or 8 months, somewhere in there. And then that became even too much. We were
Right.
just exhausted. So
Sure.
we just quit our jobs and
Pour it in.
yeah, we just went in, like we jumped in both feet. I stopped taking design clients. I only took repeat ones for the next year, basically. My old clients, right, they come back. And so I would take on small things for them. That was it. I wasn't searching for any new ones. And that was a really scary moment.
Yeah.
To say, like I had this degree and, recently paid off my student loans and, was just really revving up my design career if you think about it. And now it's like, okay, bye-bye. This thing I wanted to do. Shifting. Yeah, I wasn't saying goodbye, but it was changing. And that was an emotional struggle. Big time. It actually still is. It's hard.
No, it is hard. And I love that you're transparent enough to share that, because I'm coaching, a couple of different people right now that have a full-time day job, and they are looking to move into what we would call their side hustle as their full-time job. And it is a difficult place to be. The tension in that space is hard, because every amount of time that they might have self-care or hang out with friends or take a nap or sleep at night is now pouring into a second venture that's not that it's not great, right? But it's sucking the wind and the life and resources out of you that are not easily replenished, because you got to get up and go to work the next day. And you don't want to give less to your paying company.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You still want to provide excellent workmanship for them. And so it is a very difficult place to be. And when you're tired and when you're stressed and when you've got deadlines and goals, the emotional toll is huge. And I don't ever want us to sometimes you watch on Facebook or you watch in these groups and they're like, oh yeah, my side hustle, making my millions, out here doing all this, as if they're just like out in the Caribbean playing. And maybe there are 3 people in the world who do that, but that is most of us are grinding and we are working and we have our heads down, and there is a level of exhaustion and frustration and emotional depletion that goes with that. And I don't want to underestimate that or act like it's not there, or that there's something wrong with somebody if it shows up. It's actually very normal, very natural, and it's part of that stretching process of growing, don't you think?
I could not agree more with you. And I think it's just so disillusioned when you do see things like that. It's hard for people who are doing side hustles to realize, like, if they don't see the other people around them doing the same thing, it's hard to, what do you relate to, right? If you see these videos and these false expectations that it happens overnight, it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Right? Like when I do these interviews and I think back to when we first started, and just like that period of like starting my own design firm and before we even built Mydoma, like those 3 years, that first piece feels like that was 3 years to get to that decision. But in those 3 years, like I was hustling so hard, figuring things out and testing and like it was an incredible amount of work. And then making that switch to the light bulb going off and saying, let's build this platform, didn't make it any easier. It was just clarity in where I'm going to focus my energy.
It actually probably made it more difficult. It's just with clarity.
Yeah, it did make it more difficult, really, because now I'm going to spend my time building something that isn't going to generate any revenue and any profit for quite some time, right? I'm starting at the beginning. I have, previously built this thing that was working, right? You got to remember, at the pre-Mydoma, it was still called Mydoma, it was just my own business. I was selling my services online. I was closing projects. I was doing renovations, right? Like I had cash flow. I had all these things, and then was like, okay, now I'm not going to have it.
And now I'm going to shut all that down and go build it. Well, and again, what you build for yourself doesn't always stand up to the test of 5,000 people doing it at the same time, you know? And the way you do business and what your needs were, now you've opened up this idea that if other people are on this platform, if they're joining me here, they may do business a little bit differently. So while you're still pushing a system or processes and efficiencies, theirs may vary. And when you look at the fact, I'm probably just like adding all this torture to you as I even talk about it. Sorry. You're like, oh crap, Michelle, thanks for bringing all that up. But, coming from a software background, when you start thinking about multiple countries, multiple ways of doing things, different currencies, I know you run into currencies at least. Now let's talk about payment plan, just all these other things that keep adding. And then when we look over even time, our industry has shifted from 3-4 years ago, and it's shifting again. It's constantly shifting. And so having a platform and software that is constantly either meeting the need, ahead of the need, and not super behind the need, just the idea is to keep up with that. That's why I'm like, you definitely went for a lot there.
Yeah. And it's a bit of naiveness, to be honest, because we didn't know. I mean, you never really know what you're getting into until.
Which is probably a good thing sometimes.
Otherwise, people wouldn't do things.
Wouldn't do it.
Mm-mm. And if it doesn't scare the crap out of you, it's probably not worth doing. Truthfully, like if it's not keeping you up and you're not thinking about it all the time, then it's,
It's probably too easy, right?
Yeah.
But, Sarah, I honor the track that you're on and that you're fighting hard and you're working it out and you're figuring it out. And like we said a few minutes ago, I guess what I really want people to hear and see in all of the coaching and teaching and podcasting, whatever, but primarily even in our conversation today, is that we have to celebrate and enjoy the journey. Because do we ever really arrive? We're always building, we're always adding on. So it's not that we don't have continued goals, but we have got to enjoy the process of what we're doing. I don't want to be a designer and hate the design and hate what I'm doing and hope I'm going to get there one day. I want to enjoy each level of the market I serve when I serve them. As a coach, I want to enjoy each thing that I'm doing. Yes, I have other dreams and goals and aspirations as well. I should, but that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy where I am today. And is that the way you feel? Can you say that not saying they're not all stressful, not saying that they don't all bring their own level of turmoil or whatever, but have you enjoyed all the different stages of the build process that you've been in? Because this is a big art here. I mean, goodness.
It's funny whenever I do these, I think back and you forget how much work it is until you start to think back to the milestones that you've achieved. And yes, I can say wholeheartedly that I have enjoyed the entire process. Not all the time have I enjoyed it, but beginning to end, I have enjoyed every piece of it. Sometimes it's been very, very difficult. Whether it's building a new feature, or you're trying to acquire new designers, you're trying to understand the complexity of taxes in different countries and GDPR and it just doesn't stop. But the amount that you learn and the satisfaction of when you overcome something, that is just, it's kind of like ecstasy. It's a really great feeling. Every time you produce something new or you solve a new problem, it's pretty incredible. But it doesn't come without stress. That's what I was going to say. I don't ever want to let people, you don't want to shelter that it's super easy and a walk in the park, right? You're hustling, you're working hard all the time, and you have ups and downs. And I think all entrepreneurs can relate to that, but I don't think everybody says that out loud, right?
Right.
Perfect picture that it's easy and fun, and it is a lot of the time, but a lot of the time it's mentally draining and it can be lonely, and but you have to just know you're not alone, and you work hard at it and celebrate those milestones, and then it makes it all worth it to start the next one.
I think the other thing that is great too is feedback from your community. As interior designers or drapery workrooms or fill in the blank for any business model, we want to know that we've satisfied our client. We want to know that they like what we're doing. That, one of the questions I always encourage my clients to ask their end user client is, are there other products and services you would like Scarlet Thread Consulting to offer? Because what they're going to tell you is what they need and what they want and what they might go look to another vendor for. And if it is within your sweet spot, within your passion, within your joy, and you can solve that problem for them, by goodness, solve the problem for them. Don't send them somewhere else. Now, if you can't, they've just told you who a great referral partner for you would be.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, you're so
it's
smart.
the best question ever. Yeah. And what it does, half of my education is because I've said, is there something else you'd like to hear about? Is there something else you want to know? And if they're asking something that I know about, they've given me the idea to go to create the education. If not, I usually find another educator and go, hey, I'd like to introduce you, or this is your tribe for what you're trying to do. Yeah. And I know it's important to you to hear feedback as well. And I think it's It's just a good remembrance for us, no matter the size of the company, no matter the type of company, everybody wants to hear constructive feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we decided to really build based on feedback in the very beginning stages, probably due to the foundation of Mydoma Studio coming out of the interior design community. So because the original idea was founded on, chatting with these original designers and working together closely, it was a grounded principle. So when it came to move into beta, we started working with people. We didn't guess, right? And then that expanded outwards and outwards and outwards, and then bringing on our first employees and working with people. We said this is built by designers for designers, and it just naturally happened where and to this day, we still do all of that. And I think most of our community knows that, but we really pride ourselves on asking for feedbacks. Why would I guess? Why would I just say, this is what's best for you, when you can just tell me, what do you need? And not everything that our community asks for we build, because we do have a roadmap of where we want the product to go and what big need we want it to solve. But along the way, there's so many improvements that our designers have really shaped. And I think we're about due to put out another email that just says, here's the latest list of things that have really come from you, and let them know that they are being heard.
Yeah, when I first met you through Luann Nagara, and I reached out to her and said, I want to meet Sarah, introduce me. I knew it was the easier way to get in. I just use the resources I have. I'm getting in.
Yeah.
But what I loved was you showed me your system online. And, my background building software, financial software for Dun & Bradstreet for 10 years. So I have a software background, and that's important to me. But I also understand not every software fits every person and every business. That whole user experience, there are just a lot of things that come into play. But what I loved about it was you were showing me things, and as I'm asking you questions, there were a couple of times you were like, oh, well, it doesn't do that, but it could. And then we would go a little further, and you would say, well, it doesn't do that, but it could. Oh, and I see what you mean. And then I know, next thing I know, we get an email that says we did these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was like, and I didn't even ask you to change it. I just pointed out, here's how my clients would use this, or here's what my clients would do in this situation. And you said, well, show me and explain. And then when you understood the business need, you never promised me anything. You just wrote it down. And next thing I know, it's done. And I was like, now that's the kind of company that I like, because didn't mean you had to change it all, but you heard me. And don't we just all want to be heard if we have something to share?
Thank you, Michelle. And what you don't know is that I did write all that down, and I went back through. So we gather all our user feedback. So I was just doing a little bit of investigating to see if other people had asked for it, and maybe it had been overlooked. But I actually found out that it was more, they weren't asking for it, but it was a missing, by the way, we can let people know, it was linking in the invoices report, linking to the PO.
Purchase orders.
Yeah, the purchase order that was generated from. And just based on the feedback and looking back at what designers had said, they were asking for, they didn't know they were asking for that.
They didn't know what they were asking for, but they knew they kind of needed it.
Yeah, there was a piece there. And so having you say this was the business need, which our designers couldn't articulate. That's not their job to do it,
Sure.
And I was able to decipher and say, okay, you know what, this needs to happen, and brought that to our team and said, add it to your list of things. It's a pretty, as far as I know, which I don't know much when it comes to actually building the software. It's I think it's a pretty small change, but I think it's going to be quite instrumental into their efficiency. And yeah.
I know, okay, people already tell me all the time that I don't look at things the way normal people do. So I already know I'm in the abnormal sector. I'm very peace with that. But, I do look at it from a financial, how does it go? How does it flow? And having built project accounting systems, it just was, it's a normal way for me to think, but it's not normal for everybody else because it's not their background.
Yeah, that's right.
But I just wanted to say, how great it is. And even as, each of us owning our own business, hearing feedback from our clients, hearing what they like, what they need, is there another way? Could you offer? Could you do? It's the same thing, whether we're a software, or an application program, or whether we are a designer or a worker and working with somebody. It's being open to growing and changing to continue to meet the need.
100%. You are all about delivering, again, just like you said, no matter what you're niching in, you're delivering an experience, right? And you should be delivering the best experience, and you should be focusing on the needs of those clients. So ask them. It's so powerful. What do you need?
So I'm going to put you in the hot seat. And this wasn't one of the pre-questions I gave you, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
Have you, when you talk about, like, I'm all about providing an experience for the people that work with me. Okay. And I have a couple of words that I've defined that I know when they walk away from an interaction with me in either a teaching environment, podcasting, where I know what I want them to feel. Have you identified like 3 words for your company that says, when you interact with Mydoma Studio, here's how I want the designers to feel?
Ooh, you are putting me on the spot. Now
we'll just do a little business coaching, right?
A little business coaching. Here we go. It's funny because prior to this interview, like right before, I don't know, maybe like in the last 2 hours, Tanya's our director of customer experience. So she speaks, with our customers every single day, far more than I get to. And we were just talking about this, and she said, we're attracting a very specific type of customer. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, they're all very, so I'm going to kind of flip your answer. I'm going to try to answer your question, but I might be flipping it a bit.
Okay.
She said, they're all very compassionate. They love what they do. And when I get off the phone and they ask me, I'm flipping it again. She said, they ask me how my day was. And they ask me, did I get married yet? And they're very genuinely interested. And I said to her, that must mean that our voice in the company, the feeling that we're emitting is true to the brand. So way back in the beginning, we, in 2014, we did an exercise and we drew up what our business looked like as a person, and the voice and the emotion and everything that came out. And we really wanted designers to feel like, one, they could trust us. That was the biggest thing. No, you can trust us. We're easy to talk to.
So there's feelings. Open-minded. We want you to feel like we heard you.
Yeah, heard you, that we're trustworthy. And it's kind of silly, but also that we're fun. Like, we want to be.
No, I don't think it's silly at all.
We don't, software gets a reputation a lot as being boring, right? That it's this business management software. But why does it need to be? Like, why can't we have some fun with it? And so that was, those are.
Enjoy ourselves during the boring pieces of work.
Right, exactly. And I just think that in doing that and building out the way we wanted our company to feel and be represented, it's really interesting because the people that are a Mydoma Studio designer have these like-minded qualities, and they're all over the world. It's incredible. So the lady that Tanya was speaking to that brought up this whole conversation, I'm pretty sure she's in Australia, or she might be in England. So it's really interesting. It's not like she's our neighbor down the street, right? Somebody that knows us and can relate to us directly. Like, these people, these business owners are all over the world, but yet they all are so common. It's quite incredible.
Which means your brand voice is working. But so the reason I asked you that is I'm the same way. I know I want people, when they walk away from being in one of my courses, whatever, to feel empowered. I can go do that. And I can find the resources I need. Help is there. I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel loved on and heard. And I want them to feel just, almost, I know this is going to sound weird too. I want them to feel like they've been covered in grace. Like, they can forgive themselves for what they didn't know. They can move past any shame that's holding them back. Because when I work with people on profitability and their numbers, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they come to me with their head hanging down. They have beat themselves up. They have shamed themselves. They feel stupid. They feel dumb. They feel out of it. And they're devastated. Or they're either there or they're on the road. And I just want to literally make them feel, even online, that I have wrapped my arms around them and given them a really big hug.
I love that.
Right?
I love that so much.
Because if I can give them that hug and say, look, you may not have the strength right now, but I got it for you, and I got your back. I'm going to stand here in the gap and hold you up until you can stand up on your own. And if I can do that for them, then they can start to build their own strength, build their own confidence. And so the reason I am asking you is because you're doing it. You're doing it for your words and what you've described as your voice. Because if I can say that's what I want them to feel, that means every choice I make, every decision I make, every document I put out is trying to lead them to that. But if I go out and say, hey, I want to design, or hey, I want to put this out to the world with no idea of how I want them to feel on the other side, no idea of what I want them to get back from my company, then they're not going to pick up what I'm putting down, which is crazy. Or maybe they are going to pick that up, right? So if you're getting in these clients that are fitting this mold, it's because that's what you're attracting.
Yeah.
The good thing is you like the mold you're attracting, because what if you're bringing in a bunch of people that don't want to pay and that want to gripe and want to complain and want to, then what are you putting out there? What are you doing that's attracting them?
Exactly. Like you have to, everything you do is, it's all about building that brand, and which I mean is really important, for people who aren't just, building software like me or doing design coaching. Like think of our designers, right? Everything you do from the initial, and we talk about this a lot, the initial consultation, the initial email, whether it's a phone call, everything, your whole process, your whole client experience that you're offering is building your brand. It's not just a pretty business card and a beautiful website and a great collection of work. Those are all nice to haves, important to haves, but there's a deeper lining there of things that you should be doing and how you portray yourself, and bringing on those right kind of clients will come back to you if you put it out there in the right way.
So true, with integrity and with honesty, because that's what makes them know that the brand's trustworthy.
Yes.
Sarah, what is the biggest need that you would say Mydoma solves right now? The biggest problem? You talked about making sure you understand the problem and solve it. What would you say, if you could encapsulate quickly what the need is or the problem that you solve?
So I think on a high level, the biggest piece is we are empowering our designers to navigate and work really confidently with their clients. And that sounds very big and artsy-fartsy sounding, but really what it means is some designers are really good at navigating those conversations, getting clients to pay their invoices, make design decisions, move forward, do the things they need to do, sign a contract. A lot of designers are not great at doing that. That's not where their talents lie. So what Mydoma Studio does is it makes it really easy. Makes it easy for them to have the difficult conversations, to put the client in the driver's seat, but still maintain the control of the project. I have a great analogy. That's not mine. I've used it before because I love it so much. But really, Mydoma Studio so let's say you and your client are in a car and you're going on a road trip. And I always ask the designers, I said, if you're going on the road trip, are you driving the car or are you in the passenger seat?
I use that analogy all the time, right?
Because it's so smart. It's like, no, you're not in the driver's seat. You're actually in the passenger seat and you're holding the map. So you have way more control over where the project's going, or in this analogy, where the car is going. So Mydoma Studio, that's what it essentially does. You lay out a roadmap of what needs to be done by what timelines and what your expectations are. And this sounds like, I'm being really strict here, but you're able to do it in your own way. But you basically put the ball in their court and have them do the things that need to be done to make the project successful.
Well, and it keeps you from having to be the one to always hound them, because the system will reach out for you, which is so nice.
That's right. I don't do this until you do this, and then you focus your energy on something else.
It's a big cause and effect, and they just get to see it. Yeah. What is the cost of being inefficient in a company?
Ooh, that's another good question. I mean, we can talk dollars and cents, which are, equally important, but it's, you can lose clients. You're not efficient. You're not going to be getting new client projects. You might stifle the growth of your company. You're not inefficient. You may not hire another person. You might not get to take vacation this year, right? Like on a very small level, these are things that really affect your daily life. So you need to be efficient. Otherwise you won't have a profitable company, and that company is not going to grow, and it's not going to, be what you want it to be in the end.
How would a company like Mydoma help a designer scale?
Another really great question. So basically, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a team, but I guess we'll start with the solopreneur example, it allows you to build out your process over time. So whether you're working with one client or you're working with 5 clients, you do exactly the same thing. So setting up a project is really simple. Collecting payment is easy. You create questionnaire templates and contract templates. So you're not doing these things over and over again. You create them once, and then you keep reusing it. It's really about setting up the projects in advance, and it'll allow you to add more employees as you grow out and build out that whole process.
One of the things I usually recommend to my solo designers is before they hire, that they go get software management.
Smart.
Get your software management, because you may not need to hire, or you may need to hire a different position. So get your process, get it put in place, and then hire someone to support your process. And so that's exactly what I love about Mydoma. What one piece of advice would you offer to the interior design industry? It could either be newbies, those that are seasoned, those that are looking to, maybe have a project management or client management software. Any piece of advice that you would give?
Say, don't let fear stifle whatever dream you're working on. So if that thing is to get a book deal, if it's to create a product line, if it's just to land your first client, whatever it is, just go do it. Take steps to making those dreams come true, but you have to work hard at them. Don't sit back and just keep dreaming and thinking about them and stewing on it. Go do it. Go try. Be prepared to fail, because you probably will. But every failure just means that you've learned something, and you're one step closer to getting to where you want to be in the end.
I love that. So true. What are you doing, Sarah, to put Mydoma Studio and yourself in a position to be profitable?
Great question. So we are basically always trying to stay one step ahead, make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of what the industry needs, what our design community needs, making sure that we're always just continuously building, right? It's software. It's not one size fits all. It's not done at any point in time. It keeps being improved upon. So that's what we're always doing.
I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Ooh, I don't know. I talked quite a bit today. But, I guess the last thing I just want to say is just on that whole idea of don't shame yourself if you're not being profitable, right? And don't lose that confidence. I love what you're doing, Michelle. And I think that, if you put the right steps in place, whether it's using a software to manage the whole side of the business, whether it's hiring a coach to help you see and understand your numbers, but all of those things are taking the right steps towards profitability. You shouldn't shame yourself. You and everybody else has been there, and that's just the way it is, and you'll get through it, but you got to just keep working at it, build that confidence, and, good things will happen.
Absolutely. So, Sarah, they can find more information about Mydoma Studio at mydomastudio.com, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I will have that in the show notes. And, I'm just going to suggest to everybody, make sure you reach out, ask any questions, check out the software, let Sarah and her team, talk with you about your needs and see if it's a fit. And if it is, they'll tell you. And if it's not, they'll tell you. And either way is fine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% believe in that.
Sarah, thanks for coming on and sharing so much with us and being so honest and transparent. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on Profit is a Choice today. iTunes reviews are always welcome, and I'd love to have you join the conversation. You can do that by going to profitisachoice.club and joining right in. And remember, profit doesn't happen by accident.